Here we are, myself and Francis Zhu, and we're grateful to be here with you and doing this spontaneous live. And it just, Francis has been traveling for about 7 weeks through from Mexico across to Japan, and then over to Western Australia, then southeastern Australia, then back up to Okinawa off of Japan there and Tokyo. So, wow, you've just had a huge world tour.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you so that, so I can extend while it's still fresh, all this joy and miracles and love that I felt on this trip. It's an honor to
Yeah,
share.
yeah. It's something about the travels too, because we've done a lot of them over the years, and you just get swept away in it because it's like a whole different mode, and then you're just there to give and share and extend, and you don't always know the form that it will take, but you know your heart is opening up. And I guess too, or I guess you had a prayer when you were out on the road before you came back to just focus totally on the love,
Yeah.
and that is, if nothing else from the trip, just to come to that place of just focus on the love and nothing else. That seems to be huge.
I know I had this at the end. I felt so much love in my heart that I met all these people and people that kind of be part of this big collaboration and used together so much love. And I thought, this is love, the real life mission, to love. But then I come back and I think I'm gonna love the people, but I receive so much love. I'm like, I didn't particularly ask for receiving this much, but I thought I'm to give, but it was overwhelming. It was over the top.
Yeah, yeah. All that I give is given to myself. You're getting like a fire hose of of
Yeah,
love.
I know. That just shows there's no giver and receiver. They're completely combined, and the desire to give invites receiving.
Yeah. And I like too that before you left on this big trip, we had talked in some weeks before it, and you were just, you had some basic logistical things that were kind of coming into your mind, but that the feeling was just kind of put the word out. And
Mhm.
I guess you and JP were both kind of surprised at the number of invitations that came in, and then apparently once they started coming in too, they kept coming in for a while. So you had to even turn down some because there were so many.
Yeah, it was so nice because we haven't been traveling for a while. So, at first I also want to say that it's like a huge win for me for during throughout the whole pandemic, to be able to travel again, and it's a huge win. And then all of a sudden my mom said she's gonna send me money. I actually refused at first because like I don't need anything more than what I already have. I don't need money. I don't even know how to use it. But she rejected my refusal and insisted. So I went to you and I asked, what is this for? How can this be helpful? And you said, then just go to Australia because I need a new passport. No, driver's license. And I thought, oh, I can just do that. But wouldn't that be even more fun if I can share and do some retreats and meet more people? That just feel come purely out of. I feel this tour is like the spirit making it over the top tour. Like it's already mind blowing, and then it's like, okay, you haven't know anything yet. I give you more joy. That's the kind of feeling. Because I remember he said to you at the beginning of your travels, I was not. What is it? I will knock out your
I'll
socks.
knock your socks off.
Knock your socks off. That's how the feelings is like. whoa. And so when I first started to say, let's just put out some feelers and see whether there's any people who feel inspired to host. And it started from the very beginning. JP was with me and he said, Perth, we've never been to Perth. I said, yeah, we've never been to Perth. I don't know anybody would invite us in Perth. 1 minute later, 1 minute literally, the host, Sally, wrote to me from Perth. Wonder whether you would consider coming to Perth. I was like, look at this. And you said to me, "Oh, Melbourne. Last time we went to Australia, we were in Melbourne. Then 5 people wrote to me from Melbourne. It was so like quick and obvious, and just filled with love and invitation. Like, oh my God, come and we invite you. Anything we can help. Anything. It was feeling like so much support. Yeah, so much support from the beginning. And then Japan, Okinawa, actually this organizer translated or working on translating your book 12 years ago and wrote to me, and we planned to go there 12 years ago. I completely forgot. And then an email just showed up from 12 years ago, my email with her, saying, I say to her that we have to cancel the trip because we got a property in Hawaii. We changed our whole tour. And so thank you for inviting us and trying to organize, but we can't go at this time. So that was 12 years in the plan that never come to fruition until this time. And then we talked about it in Okinawa, and she said, to be honest, at that point, I put my hand up, but I didn't feel ready. And but it wasn't time for us too. But at this time, we came together just like, oh my God, we are, this is the perfect timing.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, it is kind of all about the timing too, because I mean, I think what we feel now so dearly and so deeply is that Jesus just orchestrates time and space for the miracle and for the miracle worker, and there's no mistakes, and it's always in perfect divine order in that
Yeah.
orchestration. But even like you mentioned, a property came in Hawaii. That was very unexpected for us. Another one of our miracle stories where we, did not realize that would happen. Even it just kind of showed itself with lots of signs and symbols along the way. But a house and also a retreat center emerged there. So that was some years too,
Yeah.
and that was everything seems to just take a full focus. You just ask to be truly helpful, you pour your heart into it, and then it all just shows up. And I think with this trip you took 7 weeks, it I think you were saying people came like at Perth and Melbourne, and they came from many different places. I think even when you were in Japan, a friend of ours came from Taiwan.
Yes.
It seems like that's been the way with all these years of travel, where when we went to China maybe 7 times, and initially I remember those first 2 or 3 times how people came from all over China,
Yeah.
because our friend Albert Tu had translated the teachings into Mandarin, and then it was kind of surprising, but now here it happened again.
Yeah. Yeah. Perth, it was the first time I went to Perth, and when I arrived, the people from Melbourne, from Sydney, from New Zealand, and Aris Rocks. That's like that's where the Uluru, the big,
In the middle, yeah,
in the middle. That's the real middle desert area.
yeah.
Northern Territory, probably even everywhere, and they flew, you know, pretty far. So it was feeling very touching. We're coming together feels like just such a precious moment because they all have been watching us a lot on YouTube, and they all feel like we're already family, we're already dear friends, And I really felt that too when we meet. It's like, oh, I know you. I know you. Where did I know? But it feels like it's just not even in the body, but it's
Yeah. Very
such
familiar feeling.
a familiar. Yeah, and so is Japan. In Japan, we walk from where we live to the gathering room. It's about 5 minutes walk, very close by. But when we went there for the first time on the first day, crossed the red light, I saw this lady crossing at the same time, saw me, start to cry immediately. She is someone who's on our online retreat for years, and that's the kind of you never see it in any other country. You're walking on a big road, crossing the street, and the Japanese person shows up and just drop everything, and then start to cry and hug
Oh,
you. It's like,
oh,
yeah, remember the first time we went to Tokyo? I've had
yeah,
this.
yeah. We met those two ladies right
Yeah,
on across from the hotel,
yeah,
and they were talking, and then yeah, we were like in Tokyo.
yeah.
Oh,
In the middle of the biggest city and the busiest street, it's like it was a surprise and shock. But then I recognized her because I saw her on our online retreat. But it was such a touching reunion. It's like, oh, it's you. But it was like in this middle busy area.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think one thing today we can talk about too is that I guess you could share a little bit, but a lot of your experiences when you met these people in Australia and in Japan, I guess the tendency in for many people in working with the Course in Miracles is to take things very seriously, to take personal responsibility with absolutely every action, behavior in their life, every thought, every feeling, this sense of personal responsibility. And then that can easily slip into kind of a like beating oneself up mentally, very critical self-talk and things. And that even if you're working with the course and you study the course and you do the lessons, but if you have this sense of it's all on me personally, I've got to find a way to break free. In fact, right before we came on, I was reading a little something from chapter 31 in the course, and it says everyone believes that he must find the answer to the riddle of himself. Salvation can be seen as nothing more than escape from concepts. And I think over all these years that we've traveled to all these countries and all these people we've met, maybe that's one of the singularly important things that people feel when we can have a holy encounter with them is the lightness, is the joy, is the love, is the laughter, and the immediate feeling that you don't have to take this too seriously, that the whole problem of the ego is the Son of God remembered not to laugh. It was taking the belief in separation serious instead of laughing at it. That was the original temptation. And so maybe you can share a little bit about how that's so touching when you show up with an open heart and then the people come
Yeah,
pouring their hearts out to you and you just hear it like a chorus of please
yeah.
help me.
I really see that so strongly. I feel there's one thing I really noticed starting from Australia, from the beginning, of course, then in Japan, the Asian culture is that people so hard on themselves, so hard, it's so critical, and just like also maybe a little bit trapped because the concepts, not even just about themselves, but what the course is teaching, turn it into a concept thinking, I can't be angry. That means I'm not forgiving. That means I'm not doing the work. Like not allowing, not no permission to the emotions, and also just like almost a frozenness of how to make decision because the ego can talk both ways. Do it. Oh, but if I do this, that means I'm this. If I don't do that, it's like they can't move because of the
Mhm.
so many concepts and ideas of how it should be to be a good course student. And that really makes me feel, wow, that's it's hard, to be that critical on yourself. And the key point is it's all on you. You need to do the right thing. You need to forgive. You need to make sure you don't follow the ego's trap. And I found that from the beginning in Australia, all that come out of me is just to point out the work is not done by you. The spirit, even forgiveness, is the spirit's job. You ask to receive it, ask to receive it, be willing to receive it. But really, the job is not yours to do, is the spirit, and it's already done. And it is like, it's such a work of trust to live with the spirit and let him show you how much has been done already, and you don't have to count on yourself to do it. It feels very stressful and depressing to think we have to rely on our own strength to wake ourselves up.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that line in the Course where Jesus says, "You cannot wake yourself, but you can allow yourself to be awakened." And it seems like that's just the general issue in pretty much all spirituality and even religion, is the sense of the personal self concept is so deeply rooted as the self, as the actual self. And then uh, that self is built on many concepts. And then, like all the great teachers have said in the avatars, you have to empty your mind of everything you think, and think you know. But it seems like that just starting off with the worldly definition of students and teachers uh, right away throws a lot of pressure and stress in there, because it's not initially seeing that you're teaching all the time and you're learning all the time, and you're always a teacher and you're always a student in the mind, and you're teaching with your thoughts and your feelings and your beliefs, and you're learning from your thoughts and feelings and beliefs. But it's when it's very personal to start off with, and the ego kind of comes in and has a field day. Oh, you're not doing it right. Comparisons. Look at
Exactly.
other students. Look at other teachers. It's a very sticky trap. And then it seems like the habit of being hard on oneself just becomes encrusted and becomes habitual. Like you just said, there's so many concepts that sometimes people feel overwhelmed by these deep metaphysical concepts, and they just need to be hugged and embraced and say, no, no, you're doing great, like you would with a child who was learning. You
Yeah.
know, you wouldn't be so strict on a child, and you would encourage them and nurture them, and really that's like a key to spiritual awakening.
Yeah, that's it. And also, even just allowing yourself to follow what really is like a spark. And I share that. I do notice that is a, a little harder to allow in the Asian cultures, in Japan, for example. But I connect with that because it's like no one ever told you that when you grow up. You don't follow what feels good. You follow what's right. You follow what your teacher tells you, your mother tells you, and the right thing, and do the right thing, be the right student. So that's another thing I felt like, oh, it's so important to allow yourself to feel happy and feel joy. And I shared this in a one-on-one with a Japanese friend, and I said, you need to focus on what is inspiring to you. And she's like, oh, if I think about inspiration, it's all forms. No, it's not good because it's all forms. I said, what's wrong with just having some forms coming? A form is the ego, is the world. That means I want the world. I said, no, no, no. How can the spirit reach you? except through what you understand. Spirit reach you through that. How do you know? Who puts that in your mind? Lisa always says that. Who put that desire in your heart? It's the spirit. If you have that desire, that's really what I realized. It was so profound. Spirit and God is not separated. My desire and his desire are not different. It's not different. Don't be so hard on yourself to judge it so quickly. Form, bad, 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 ego, ego, ego.
Yeah, that's so funny. I think one of the biggest laughs I had too was more towards the end of your tour. I had just flown from Mexico uh, to Salt Lake City. I was just settling into a hotel room after a flight, and I think I had CC'd you on an email, and then you called me, and you were sharing a number of things. You were in a hotel room too, there in Japan, but the one that I just was laughing so hard, and I went to bed laughing that night, was you had a one-on-one request with a child
Yeah.
who had come to your gathering, and that was just an example of a spontaneous miracle. Maybe you can share a little bit about that, because I just was smiling and laughing when you were telling it, and it was just so funny and so out of pattern, like a miracle. And then I just went to sleep laughing because it was just so hilarious.
Yeah, because we had in Okinawa, we have this young man came to the gathering. First, we noticed because he's unusually young, and then he came with his mother. Um, and in the gathering, then we find out that his mother just recently had a stroke, but he started the course not long after that. But he is so mature, and then he asked some really beautiful questions. But then he requested one-on-one after the gathering. He and his mother, like side by side, but he's only 13 years old. 13 years old, studying the course, and he came to me, of course, asked some practical questions about whether to take his mother to a trip, and the father is not in approval and angry, so how to handle that. But then it goes to his personal life because he quit school after it didn't feel the joy and the connection. And then he went to a Christian school and quit again because it didn't work out again. And this normal thoughts like adult person normally have, it came to him like, how am I gonna sustain myself in the future? It feels a lot of stress, um, not finishing school, not having school, and not knowing the next step. And I was watching it, just I feel my heart just opens because I know. I mean, he is like a young adult. He's an adult living in a 13-year-old body, so mature, and even the grasp of the course and everything he says. Even the reason he wants to take that trip, he said ultimately is because that's the old family house from the grandparents. They want to go visit the grandparents before he passes. But the main reason for him is he feel people's heart are closed, and he feel they need message to open their heart. That's why he wants to go. He wants to extend.
Yeah,
That's like you don't hear it from a 13-year-old boy. And so I said, wow, I think you're going to be totally fine. Without school, without anything, you're going to be totally fine. And I said, even in the gathering, I noticed people know you because you have some podcast or station you're sharing about the course. He said, yes, he was sharing about the course online in some podcast. So people already know him. And then he said he has been doing some gatherings where he loves playing violin and make Japanese sweets. So he prepared that and make the most gorgeous flyer, design it all on himself, design his YouTube channel, and then serve people with his own sweets. and play violin for them and do gathering. And I said, 13-year-old, you're fine, you're totally fine. And I just showered him with all the confident, like, this is beautiful. You, and at the end, he just laughed and he said to me, "So God is romantic?" I said, "Yes, God is very romantic." I thought that's a great compliment. Like, you know God because it's personal. This love is so personal. You feel safe, you feel relieved, you feel, oh, he loves me, he loves what I want. It's gonna be okay. But this is like a very out of pattern, 13-year-old come, maybe even take his mother to the retreat. I don't know. But yeah, very, very surprising, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, talk about a prodigy. That's kind of like a Course in Miracles prodigy. And
Yes.
didn't you say that at 13 he'd said he'd done retreats for some years with these flyers? So it's almost like he was experienced at giving Course in Miracles retreats at 13. I was laughing so hard I thought, what was I doing when I was 13? I have no
Yeah.
idea.
I thought, wow, the spirit got you. Don't have to worry. The spirit really got everybody, even in the most outrageous, like, path that you think nobody really understand. Nobody can offer you some comfort. No, spirit gonna send the one to tell you, you're good. I got you.
Yeah, yeah. And how he cared for his mother, Usually, usually the mothers sometimes want to bring their children along, but that's another flip, with him kind of bringing his mother to the retreat as he's an experienced retreat giver, and he's like, "Hey, come on with me." Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the fun part of it. There's so many things that come unexpected. I think you were sharing with me too that you just had some of these unexpected miracles, meeting a friend of yours from
Yeah.
Australia that you had been working on your master's degree, and that was a kind of a very unique story about how it was orchestrated so much by the Holy Spirit. Maybe you could share a little bit of that. That just touched my heart when I heard that.
Yeah, because we, after the retreat in Melbourne, we're gonna go to Japan, but we're gonna do the Okinawa retreat first before Tokyo. So we fly from Melbourne to Okinawa, and the only good flight we find is to stop Hong Kong, overnight stop. And so we really want to have freshness when we arrive and feel rested. So we said maybe we extend our overnight stop for like a few days to rest well. And then when we were in Melbourne, this friend suddenly texted me out of the blue. She was with me in Australia when we study MBA, like business, but she's from Hong Kong. But we haven't really been in touch after all that time. But at the end of my graduation, when I got into job there in Australia, I got into this. My life was falling apart completely. And it was a very hard time for me. But that pushed me to the course. So eventually she moved back to Hong Kong. She asked me what I'm up to, and she said she got a job in insurance. She didn't really like it, don't really have any better options. And I said, I'm quitting my job. I'm going for God now. And she's like, what do you mean? So I don't know. I don't really have more that I can share with clarity, except I'm gonna move to America. I'm figuring out what my life purpose is with God. This is what all that I can share at the time. So last year she texted me saying, are you in America? So I called her and said, no, I'm in Mexico. And she said, oh, what's in Mexico? So I said a little bit of I'm living in a community, but that's all the contact we had. And when she texted me 3 days before I was due to go to Hong Kong, and said basically she's going through a tough time in her life, everything is falling apart, and she really wants to meet with me. And she said, I don't know where you are, but I'm willing to fly anywhere you are in the world. In her mind, it's America or Mexico. So I called her. I said, it turned out I'm in Hong Kong in 3 days. I can meet there. And she's like, oh my God, that would be wonderful. So we thought, wow, that's very synchronistic, extremely synchronistic to be able to do a stopover for no other purpose, no gathering and everything. And this text just came in. And then all these other, I shared it with you a little bit, then some kind of ego doubt come in through American government issuing traveling warning to Hong Kong, saying, basically you can be detained if they suspect you to be a protester or a journalist. So we were praying so hard, like, what is the purpose, Holy Spirit? Should we do this, or should we focus, or be open to the warning that's sending us, like these warnings? But one feels fearful, the other one feels joyful. And so we thought we went for joy. And I also remembered after I told my friend, her name is Sandy, after I told her that I'm going for God now, she went for God too. She became a Christian after that. And so I kind of, in prayer, I heard she's God's person and I'm God's person. So if God is behind this, who can be against? Like I feel like
Yeah.
confidence. And so we went in, and yeah, it was such an easy entry into the immigration. And then when we met, it was just unbelievable holy encounter with. We were sharing our life. We never really share about our life, and it was all about our life with God, in seemingly different form pathways, but it was so much the same in the essence. We were talking about what it means to live with God, by God, what is important to us, and it was just all the same. And what gives us direction is God's the voice of God. And she said, yeah, I just wake up every day and just ask God, tell me what to do today, tell me who I meet, tell me what I should say. I said, that's so beautiful. And she said, what about you? Same. It's like so much sameness. And then she said, but I still have this question, how do I know it's not my voice, it's actually God's voice? I said, this question is the question of probably all spiritual students.
Yeah.
I said, how do you know? Some, because she tells me all these miracle stories. She said she went to Europe for 3 months with her friends, and she prayed, and she said, where should I go? How do I design this tour? And she heard, leave it with me. Let me surprise you. And she said, okay, I will then. Not planning anything, went with two friends. She said it goes past all their pre thought routes of all of those, but took them to all these amazing places. Everywhere they went, it was fireworks every night. And it's a big symbol for her, fireworks. So she said it was just unbelievable. So I said, yeah, how do you know whether the voice is God? She said, oh, I feel peaceful. I said, that's it, that's it, that's it. There's no other way to intellectually figure out, to intellectually know. I heard the voice, I heard the Holy Spirit, I heard the voice for God, and I know it. No, you feel peaceful. That's all. That's what we live by. Peace. We go, we pray, we listen, follow for peace. For peace. And that we just like, oh my God, we had this. And also another big aspect after that was she was telling me what's going on with her life. And she was going through some really rough things with work, which is pretty huge in Asian, to leave your job and not having a plan, because that's all your future is tied to. Now, like, you have other options in mind normally. But she did something that she said she had to pray so hard to know whether she did the right thing, because pretty much she got kicked out afterwards. And she cried for 2 months, didn't sleep for 2 months. That's why she texted me. She said, I was praying to God to know how to get out of this depression, and heard your voice. And she said, I thought it was weird because you're so far away, other side of the world. But I felt this urgency to text you and let you know I'm willing to do anything. I'm free now. And she texted me. It was a perfect timing. So
She was ready to come anywhere in the world you are, and you said, "I'm actually in Hong Kong."
and then so I the thing is, what touches me is listening to her story. I have so many flashbacks of my own journey at the very beginning, because it felt very confusing for me to make this big change. And you never know when you're going through it, why is this good, because you don't feel good, you feel confused, you feel with no clarity, and the emotions just through the roof like you never experienced. But when I was sharing with her, I felt this confidence. It was like so much confidence, and I just feel so good that I have this clarity that I never really had when I was going through it, and I can share with someone. It was an honor, like the most holy thing I could do. And when I shared it, I felt my heart just like swirling with this energy the whole time. I have so much to say. I never experienced that. I have so much to say. I can't stop myself. It's like everything with complete confidence. And I can feel she felt the exact same way. She was like buzzing, and probably never expect to hear such comforting confirmation that nothing is wrong. It's all good. It's a divine plan, and you're going through this for a reason. It's all for a really deep purpose. It's not because of your mistake, not because you did anything wrong. Definitely, and all right, of course. And don't give yourself the pressure. It's just like, yeah, just so touching for me. And I think it meant a lot to her to hear that there is no mistake, and this is not it's not going to turn out to be terrible.
Yeah,
And that moment made me realize everything we go through in life, no matter how much in the moment it doesn't make any sense and doesn't even feel good, it's a service, because clarity will come, and when it comes, it's for everyone. It's for everyone in the world. It just feels, yeah, I don't know, it feels so meaningful to me. And yeah. And I was just like, oh, thank you, Holy Spirit. You know how to use me, without a guarantee, you put me in this very spot with the one who really, really, really needs it. I can feel it.
yeah. She like pulled it out of you,
Yeah.
and I think that's also because the world's backwards and upside down, and even for Christians, they know they're just trying to follow the Lord, and they've been raised with the Bible quotes. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, that which is born
Yes.
of the spirit is spirit, and they know that they want to be reborn again and connect with and remember the spirit. That's the whole focus of their life, and follow guidance. And I think that's such a good example that I know for yourself, you had many opportunities just to, it seemed to be a crossroads or a choice that the world would say is a big choice. But I know you said, I just felt like it was obvious. Like I
Yeah.
felt it was so obvious I had no choice. Like it was a given, and then
Yeah.
another given, and then
Yeah.
another given. And yet, when you put all those little given moments together, you have such appreciation. Like, wow, I was unwound from
Yeah.
a worldly identity, and I was released to a spirit identification. And when you're going through it, there's not an understanding. I think that's, we've gone through that point over and over, is that probably the biggest problem that Course in Miracles students and teachers have is they try to understand intellectually first, and then they will
Apply.
achieve something or experience something. And the experience does not come through intellectual understanding, because it's really an oxymoron. If the salvation is can be seen as nothing more than escape from concepts, and intellectual understanding is trying to understand through the concepts, which have to be released and escaped, then it's a closed system. It's like you don't ever come into the joy from that perspective. So you didn't have an understanding, but you did have trust. You didn't have an understanding, but you did have faith. You kept praying and praying and praying, and then more things just seemed to fall away automatically. Not like you were personally saying, "I, Francis, am now going to give up this thing or give up." Jesus says in the workbook, many have tried to renounce the world while still believing in it. And you see how clever and sneaky the ego is, but just your faith and trust and your prayers did it all. And then it just emerged. The love emerged.
Yeah. Yeah, and after we left, the lunch was so feels so rich for all of us, and the night was a huge firework night in Hong Kong, huge. And I don't normally see fireworks, and I was saying to JP, I wonder whether Sandy sees it because it feels like it's the most meaningful symbol for her, and it was like almost last a whole night. And I thought the spirit is it just feels so dear that the spirit is with us, every step of the way, every single step of the way.
Yeah, yeah. I love that miracle story too. You talked about where you and JP were trying to find a restaurant, because you
Yeah.
know it's so simple that really, when we have the prayer in our heart, "I'm here only to be truly helpful," we're really calling on Jesus and the Holy Spirit to just use us in the most helpful way for the whole universe. And we don't have a clue what that is, but maybe you can share how that helpfulness made you feel so happy,
Yeah.
yet it was such an out of pattern experience
Yeah.
that people would say, "Is that a miracle?" And
Yeah.
like, yes, it's the happiness tells me it really is.
We were in Tokyo, and probably at the very end, and we just thought to eat something and in a nearby place. So I Googled on Google Map and just find something that's very close by to where we live, just literally 2 minute walk or something. They're supposed to be open. We went there and it was closed. And it's just a very simple sign. I really like it because it says, we feel to take a rest. They're supposed to be open, but they put a sign, we feel to take a rest. And I love it. And so we thought, okay, good, it's clear, it's not given. Let's move to the next one. So we walked a bit and we find another one we really both feel. And we went in, and yeah, it was very sweet because the owner came and explained in full in English, like this huge menu, every single one. He was trying to explain to me in English what it is, and then we feel our heart was just so warm and connected and relaxed. And then this young man sitting right next to us finished his meal, so he went to the cashier to pay, and that's the wife of the owner. And then surprisingly, he looks completely Japanese, but he speaks English to the wife. And the restaurant is full, but only JP and I could understand what they're saying. Basically, they're saying, the lady was saying, oh, no credit card, only cash. And the guy was saying, I don't have any cash. No credit card, only cash. But all I have is credit card. No credit card, only cash. I don't have any cash. So they went on just like that. Same talk from each one 4 or 5 times. And only JP and I care what I look around. Nobody really even lift their heads. They don't know. They know Japanese. So we felt we were called to help. And so I said, we can help. We have some cash. And the guy was so, and the cashier was as well. They were so grateful. And he said, can I pay you guys back in US dollars? And we were like, sure. Can I sort it out right now? We're like, sure, if you want, no rush. But it was very, very swift. But the what left with me is I immediately knew that was the real reason we're guided to that restaurant. It wasn't for anything else. This is the purpose why. And it was because we're there to give and offer uh, an answer to a call for love. And we were guided into it. It was so obvious, and it was only us who can do it. There was no question. Should I do it? Should I not? It was obvious and unconventional. And I left the restaurant feeling so happy. And it was really striking, like how happy I had a happy day, like really happy day. And I feel like, oh, so happy to be guided by the spirit to give, to be truly helpful, in a way that you don't even plan to do or know how to be helpful, then just put right in front of your face, and it's very obvious.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity to be glad, to gladden ourselves, to have that desire to be helpful and to follow the guidance.
Yeah. That's a good example of how it's kind of brought to you, where you were just so open, even had a restaurant in mind, we're decided to rest. Then you come to the other one, you go in, and you're the only ones that can hear this conversation because everyone
Mhm.
else is Japanese. And then just the natural desire to be helpful,
Mm,
it's so precious. I think of all the movies we've watched in the Movie Watcher's Guide, there are just those movies that kind of unfold in a very soft, gentle manner, but there's just this kindness and there's this gentleness and there's this desire to be helpful. I
mm,
know when you and I visited Japan for the first time, there was just we were really struck by the sense of honor and respectfulness and
yes,
gentleness
yes,
there among the people. It was just so striking. And
yes,
then it sounds like you just were right there and on the spot. Also, there was a funny miracle story you had where uh, you were with a Japanese group and they spent, you said, maybe 10 minutes or more trying to explain to you a particular word and how it turned into the world will end in laughter.
yeah.
It turned into the most glorious miracle experience just from these people trying to explain to you what this word meant in this Japanese word.
I think it's actually a great message from the spirit to all of us, because that's after we finished our last gathering, last one-on-one day. Like it's the end of the whole event in Japan. So the organizer and three um, friends, some of them are our translators that with us this whole weekend and planning it all as well. It was the end. So this is how the tour ended in a way, because they took us to dinner. And in the Japanese restaurant it's very quiet. It's extremely quiet. And we went in there, we had some dinner, and then all of a sudden they were talking among themselves in Japanese, and this word keeps showing up, shibui, shibui, shibui. So we just asked, what does that mean? And it took them, four of them, looking at Google Map, talking among themselves. It took them 10 minutes, full 10 minutes to try to find out a good English word to explain to us what that word means. And I feel like I kind of get it, because it feels like it's something to do with a design style, um, of very classy, but just natural. It's not flashy. It's not try to be kind of like a Zen garden, Japanese Zen garden. It's very beautiful. But then in the end, this our translator saw it like saying, Gregory Peck. Yeah, no, Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck is Shibui. And that's the end of the definition. After explaining all this is example of this definition. And we just, it somehow connected all of us, and we just start laughing. Felt it was hilarious, and we laughed 2 hours, pretty loud, in a very very quiet Japanese restaurant. I was looking around, is that even conventional? But it was so funny to all of us. And then even after dinner, JP said, I don't even know what we're laughing about. We were laughing for so long, it's out of control. I said, I know, I don't either. But it sounds funny, it's just funny. And that is the message the spirit left with us, and say, you know, ended with laughter. That's what we don't even need explanation. We don't need concepts to laugh. We don't need to know how or why. Where did we start this conversation? Why do we even ask that word? Don't remember.
So you're left with the Gregory Peck, a miracle, and nobody remembers what the original question was.
Yeah, why do we need that word to be explained? Don't remember. But I will never forget that word. Really, again. Gregory Pike.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it
Um,
was so much fun. And
yeah,
ended in the end, it was just laughing for no reason. Couldn't
yeah,
stop.
yeah. But I think that's so beautiful too, because it's like that's like really like the prayer of the heart is for the love and the joy and the laughter, and then actually we can't know the way that we will be brought into it. We have to trust the Spirit. We just have to have the prayer or the desire for it, and and then it reminds me of those conditions we always talk about from Workbook Lesson 135. You know, we can't know that there's a problem. We can't have an idea of the means to solve the problem. We really have to be, I guess, in the end, clueless, because all thoughts of personality, personal responsibility, personal concept of means and ends, like in the world. If this money comes in, then I'll be able to do that. If I learn these skills, then I'll be able to do these tasks. You know, that conditioning of means and end in the world, and that conditioning of somehow you have to personally solve the problem. You know, you have to resolve the problem personally. That is so deeply ingrained, and it seems like that is the block. That salvation is escape from concepts, and the secret of salvation is I do not know the thing I am, what I'm doing, where I'm going, how to look upon the world or on myself. It's the state of open mindedness, or I guess you could say cluelessness. So maybe that's why when we have movies like, Peter Sellers and Being There, or Bill Murray, The Man Who Knew Too Little,
Mm,
maybe that's why they're so funny, is
mm,
because somehow we're starting to get the joke
yeah.
that that our identity in this world has been the parody, has been the big joke.
Mm,
The joke that we could substitute a personal identity in place of Christ, in
mm,
place of God's Christ gift. The gift of the Christ to us. So it's kind of almost like we back into it, like with
mm.
the Gregory Peck story, and everything. It's almost like you end up laughing for 2 hours, and then you have no idea how it even started. You get completely absorbed in the laughter and the love, and then there's nothing else. There is no there is no question
Yeah,
about the past.
yeah, and that's also just feel like it's so unstructured. You can't make this happen. You can't plan on it. You have to allow yourself to just be taken over by the moment and let yourself go. Because JP loved it so much that they spend 10 minutes, just let themselves like take time. They're not in any rush to explain. They just take time until they feel settled. And he was loving it. He was telling me, "Oh, I love it. I love that they do that. It's so good that they can give themselves so much permission just to." And it was, yeah. I just feel like, this is this is a course of happiness, of a real experience. Only experience can dissolve the intellect, because with that experience, our mind or the ego just want to come to, I need to know. I need to know how to do this, how I can get it. But yeah, but when we let go of I need to know, then we leave some space, just it's gonna show up. And the real experience is teaching us. That's really the only way we learn, is through these real experiences of love and joy and, yeah, laughter. Just real connection and laughter. I feel so much love for this trip, and I feel so much love for the people, and I get this feeling like, oh, it's not me loving them. It's God. The God loves them that much. God loves them that much that He want me to express it in some way that they can understand, that can touch them. This is how much it really, really touched me, because I feel I don't have to hold back. I don't have to, like, hold back from my love or feel, oh, is this specialness? Like, forget all of it. You
Yeah,
know, if I love this much, that means God loves them even more. Just let yourself be a true messenger of God, to be used, to be the messenger for love in any way that your brother can understand. Of course, being guided by the Spirit, because we don't ever know how to truly be helpful in a personal way. But it feels really like, that's why I had this prayer. I come back, I was like, this is the real life mission. Let yourself be the messenger for God's love. And it's not you that's love anything. It's God loving everything through you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think about maybe an example like with the Beatles, they had all those love songs. She loved you, yeah, yeah, yeah. All the love songs, so many came through. And then the Beatles broke up, and then John Lennon got together with Yoko Ono, and then they had a child, Sean. And I remember listening to some of the interviews at that time, and John Lennon was making fun. He said, "Well, I'm no longer Beatle John anymore," because they'd broken up. So he's literally letting go of the identity. And then he had some songs. I don't believe, he would talk
Mm,
about like the netty netty, all the things
yeah,
that he doesn't believe in anymore.
yeah.
And then came this song called "Beautiful Boy," which was "Close your eyes, say a little prayer." And then the line that I love the best: "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans." You
Mm,
know, while the ego is gyrating plans and, oh, do this and what's next. Da, da, da.
mhm,
Life is what happens to you. Love is what happens to you. God's love
mm,
happens because it's real and it's true
mm,
and it's always there and it
mm,
can't be stopped. It's an unstoppable love. And
mm.
and what an amazing experience to start to see it has nothing to do with persons.
No,
People have to figure out how to love.
and it's so overwhelming to feel like God loves us this much. Actually, it feels personal. It feels close. It feels not outside. There's a God outside of me loving me. No, it's how I feel. It's right here, not separate. And I will stop judging it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all we're really going into this journey for. Ultimately, it's not about how to do forgiveness right, how to make the right decision. No, how can we really feel God's love? How can we really feel I am perfect, holy, just as He created us? Be convinced, be know for sure, be happy for real.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm just love with that feeling of just like it's such an honor. It has such a deep reverence. it's like a deep respect, but an honor to give your life over to it, to give everything to it. It's so different from the ego, which is always like, what do I have to do, and what is it going to cost me? All those things. That's really not it at all. It's just an honor to honor God, honor true divine love, by being loving, just naturally. So, yeah, that's not complicated. That's got to be the simplest of all. Well, that's just so beautiful. I'm so glad we had a chance to do this. I think when we had taken trips, we would always just kind of recollect and let the miracles kind of come back. And I guess you were saying that now you're still starting to remember. You remembered today a couple more miracles that were there, and how precious. It's like the Spirit's just reminding us.
I
What.
know. I do feel on this trip so strongly that the spirit walked before me. Like a lot of the times with gathering, and even today, he put miracles in my mind that I don't even remember ahead of time. And with gathering, it was so much because my mind gets so empty the day before. I'm like, anything gonna come out? And, and then it started to have things flash into my mind, parables, different things. And it was like, wow, he is really prepping me ahead of time, and I don't have to plan, I don't have to think, I have to do it. I show up, and that's the only thing in my mind. It shows up this morning, that's what I'm gonna say. And it's always so perfect because I wasn't planning to. It's not coming from any other place.
Yeah, yeah, so beautiful. Well, beautiful. Well, thank you for this beautiful joining. Always such a joy to come together and experience it. That's been such a joy and honor all along to give it over to God. And yeah, it's in the experience. It's not in the beliefs or the concepts. It's not into trying to banter something around or figure something out. It's really more like you're willing to show up and not figure it out. It's
Yeah.
more like you're willing to show up and be clueless, but with a desire to be like helpful in whatever way is necessary. And that seems
Mm,
to be the key.
that's it. That's it. To be so clueless and allow us not to know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I love you so dearly. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, David. It feels so precious.
Uh, okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this spontaneous live.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you guys.
Love you.